Hello, 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 everyone. Hopefully, everyone's there. Um, Sorry for the delay and the fact that I'm now streaming at 7 o'clock instead of at um, 5 o'clock like I normally do. But just had something come up for the family that I couldn't get around. So hopefully this works out. Let's see. I just want to make sure the stream is up and running. It is good. Okay. So, what am I going to talk about tonight? I'm going to talk about a couple things. First of all, I'm going to talk about the fact that, we're in the process of grading a whole bunch of stuff. You should have gotten your conceptual assignment back already, and hopefully you've seen that. We're currently grading the situation analysis, and I hope to have that back to you by by sometime next week, toward the end of the week, so that we can discuss it during the group conferences the week after. I want to talk a little bit about that. So essentially, that's a good place to start, right? So essentially, with the group conferences, the way it works is you choose the medium you want to talk to me on, right? If you want to do it Google Hangouts, if you want to do it on Skype, if you want to do it whatever your group is comfortable using, I want you to use that one, and then send me an invite, okay? And I'll send this out in an email later this week, probably, right? So that's the kind of way I want to handle the group conferences. And hopefully, if you haven't seen them already, you can go on quickly and sign up on the doodle poll for one time slot, right? And this is your best chance to chat with me about the projects, the group projects, to chat with me about the course itself, right? Any questions you might have about that, and to chat with me about the feedback you've gotten so far. Anything else you want to add into the course? Think about that stop, start, continue kind of framework that I used in the midterm evaluation. Anything you want me to stop, anything you want me to start, anything you want me to continue, right? Like, that's kind of the goal to talk about. And this is my chance to give you kind of one-on-one feedback on how well I think your group project is going along, right? So I'll have talked it over with the grader. I'll have read the document myself in depth by then, right? The situation analysis, and we'll kind of have a chance to chat about how the direction's going and where it's going, right? So that's a group project. The other thing I want to mention is the analytical assignment. So the analytical assignment will become live early Tuesday morning sometime. So you look for it at that point. Next week is spring break, and of course that doesn't matter as much for the online program, but I'm out of town anyways, right? And so I kind of want to give you the week off. So continue to, work on the analytical assignment. You'll have 2 weeks to work on it essentially, and it will be due, right? You won't see any office hours the week after spring break. So this is the last time you're gonna see me for about 3 weeks. That being said, I also have a small mea culpa. I didn't get the slides on this laptop for the Pinterest conversation, so I'm going to hold off on that too. Thanks to all of those who sent in comments already. But we'll discuss the Pinterest and the anti-vaxxing kind of campaign in 3 weeks when I get back and when we come back online again, right? And that time we're also going to talk about, I have a new reading that's going up online that's going to be the week after we come back from spring break. That will be about Facebook and the kind of data it has access to, right? And specifically, for those who don't know, a lot of this came up recently because apparently a bunch of apps have been giving given data to Facebook that you haven't explicitly given them permission to share, right? Or that you may have implicitly given them permission to share at some point along the way, right? And so, some of this is information like Fitbit information and body tracker information and stuff like that, which gives Facebook access to data about you physically, right? So we're going to talk about that. I'm also going to use that as an excuse to talk a little bit about the bigger question of privacy and marketing, right? And so I'll put that up the week after the spring break. I'm also going to include a particular article on there that I found interesting. I know there's been a lot of questions in the forums, and we've actually had the question in my online class quite a bit about people who swear that their phone is listening to them and that Facebook is spying on them, right? And Mark Zuckerberg denied this, right? Now, that being said, I do want to say there are legitimate ways your phone is listening to you that you may not realize, right? So, for instance, your phone, both the Android and Siri, are capturing audio at random times all the time, and they're using it to train a text-to-speech recognition software, right? Now they claim, both Google and Apple claim in this case, that data is not mined for advertising purposes, right? But it's one of those things where we trust them at their word, but there's been a lot of companies not following through on their word all the time, right? Another example that's come up recently, I can't remember his last name, but Shane, who's a YouTube kind of star, did this like conspiracy theories video, and he showed how the iPhone and the Android does this too. When you have the live picture option enabled, or actually in the camera app is open, are constantly capturing sound, right? And the reason why is because if you click the live picture button, it's capturing like 2 or 3 seconds before the picture and 2 or 3 seconds after, so you get that little like motion thing that you get in the live pictures, right? But that actually records the sound as well, right? So there's no way for them to capture the 2 seconds before unless they're constantly recording, right? So this is another way that people sometimes are not aware that their phones are capturing sound. Now, in both of these cases, the firms have come out and said that they are not actually using that for advertising or mining. So the question becomes, why do people think that firms are mining their speech, right? The only way they're doing it is they're mining speech. Well, a lot of these cases are scenarios that you can actually figure out. So, one of my students in my offline class mentioned that they had this conversation with shoes with like 4 other people, right? And about a particular brand of shoes. And when they got home, they immediately started seeing ads for the brand of shoes, right? And they're like, well, I never searched for those brands. Like, how could they know that, right? Well, first of all, if one of the people had recently made that purchase, who was in that group, and those phones are in close proximity to each other, right? It doesn't take a genius on the other end to kind of put all this stuff together and figure out that might be a good targeting campaign, right? It's also the case that if one of the other people needs to goes home and searches for those shoes, even if you don't, right? That might also imply that there's that conversation going on, right? So there's a bunch of different ways in which these are not, they don't have to be friends on Facebook, right? It's not like my phone being next to your phone means I'm a friend on Facebook, right? That's still data about the potential relationship and the potential conversations we might be having with each other. And so it's those kinds of things that can allow these firms to start to make advertising decisions even without the voice to speech kind of being mined for Facebook, for app data, right? And, kind of take a step back, right? I think the bigger point, the more interesting point from the point of view of marketers, is you don't need that data, right? Like, you wouldn't even need people, like, to be recording people's conversations in order to get this amount of targeting, right? Because we know more about these people than we ever have before, consumers. We know what their friends are purchasing, right? We know what they're purchasing. And we can put all that data together, kind of start to build out these really, truly powerful personas of these individuals that we can then use to understand a little bit of how to market to them, right? So that actually brings up a very interesting question, and that's the question I hope to dive into in another 3 weeks, which is, how should marketers use this information, right? So I did a little interview when I was at the Winter AMA, American Marketing Association meeting, with Sage, who's one of the big textbook publishers, about what I thought the biggest challenge to marketers going forward is. And for me, the answer is quite simple, right? The biggest challenge is not like how to do machine learning, how to do personalization, how to do AI for marketing, right? That stuff's all kind of like, it's not easy, but it's something that we know how to do as that engineers know how to do, right? And we can solve all those problems, right? The biggest question, the most complex question I think facing marketers in the near future is how to deal with privacy, how to deal with the wealth of information and insights that AI and marketing and all these cool tools do for us, right? So, I kind of joked at the end of it that the question used to be, how can we possibly figure out the best offer that we can make given the extremely limited information we have about our consumer, right? And now the conversation should really be focused more around the lines of, given the wealth of information we have about our consumers, right? how can we make an offer that will best maintain a long-term relationship? And sometimes that means not being creepy, right? That means maybe, even if I have a high reason to believe that this person just had a conversation about a very niche pair of tennis shoes, right? I probably should not advertise at them right away, because that's kind of creepy, right? So trying to figure these things out is probably the biggest challenge facing marketers in the near future. Anyways, small conversation, but I'm gonna have some readings to talk about that in more depth. We're gonna talk initially a little bit about kind of the privacy implications from the point of view of what marketers should and shouldn't be doing in terms of their own desires, and then we're going to talk a little bit about GDPR and I think it's called the California Online Privacy Act. Is that what it's called? California Privacy Law. Yeah, one of the nice things, because sit at my computer. California Consumer Privacy Act, not Online Privacy Act, right? CCPA, which that's interesting, because the GDPR primarily only affects European Union citizens. It doesn't mean it doesn't, companies here in the U.S. whose content can be accessed by the EU citizens, it affects them as well, right? But it doesn't affect, even a European citizen who is in the United States, right? It doesn't protect them. They have to be under GDPR. They have to be residing in the EU, right? However, the California Consumer Privacy Act is a little different in its wording. It actually protects people who regularly domicile in California, right? So that means even if you're currently spending, a college year, you're taking some education at North Carolina State, but you live in California, right? And that's your permanent address. Technically, the California Consumer Privacy Act protects you, right? Which means that companies have to take you into account if you're living in North Carolina, right? It's an interesting law, right? It'll be interesting to see, because it doesn't go into effect till January 1st, 2020. But it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the courts. Anyway, so that's kind of, I just wanted to give you, since I don't have the great slides to talk about anti-vaccine today, I wanted to kind of, quickly talk about these kind of issues and kind of give you a heads up of where we're going from here, right? So that being said, right, the other couple of things I wanted to discuss included so we talked about the group assignments and how those are going. We talked about the conferences that we're going to have in 2 weeks, right? And we talked briefly about the analytical assignment, but the analytical assignment will be coming out shortly. It'll be similar to the conceptual assignment, where it will be a 5 questions, roughly half page each. So it's not that much. It's going to be very similar, except for it'll be more quantitative, more math oriented, more analytics oriented, whereas the last one was more strategy oriented, right? Okay. Sorry, just muting my phone. So that's kind of the big difference there. The other things you got going on, there's some new videos on content marketing, and there's some great kind of examples in there. One of the videos I kind of take you through a little bit of the 2 great YouTube videos. One is the Switch, which features Nike, and one is which is about Nike and Cristiano Ronaldo, right? And then there's one called the Prologue, which features Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Probably nowhere near that pronunciation right, but and talks about Volvo, right? So take a look at those. I think they're great examples of good content marketing. The Cristiano Ronaldo clip is almost 7 minutes long, and yet has racked up millions and millions and millions of views, right? And so it's kind of a great example of a good piece of content marketing. So take a look through that. I mean, besides content marketing, the other topic that's covered in the videos this week is writing for digital, right? And in this particular case, right, the way I have this course structured is we talk about social media just to give you a channel to talk about, that we can talk about the marketing work. Then we talk about analytics, so we can talk about, because that's really the foundation of this course, is how to use analytics to understand digital marketing. Then we talk about web design and web content, because that's kind of an app design, because that's historically the largest component of digital marketing. And now we're going to kind of talk a lot about how to actually write and create content. So user experience, right? Content marketing, writing for digital. And then when we get back from the break, we're going to go into the other channels, right? So we're going to go into things like display advertising, email, video advertising, digital commerce, CRM, and these kind of topics, right? But a lot of the things we're talking about right now, writing for digital, right? Writing for digital applies for the web. Content marketing applies for the web. It applies for social media. It applies for video, right? Like, it's all very similar kinds of approaches that you should be using in these different platforms, but then taking advantage of what those platforms provide for you, right? So that's kind of the big stuff you're going to be seeing this week. There's also a bonus video from Optimove, which does kind of intelligent AI-powered marketing. And there's a conversation that I had last year with Amit Bavas, who's the head of marketing for Optimove. So that might be interesting. Great interview for you to watch. Kind of a guest speaker, if you will. All right. So besides watching those videos, filling out a request time to meet with your group, looking for the situation analysis comments, which I'll send back, filling out the mid-course survey, working on the analytics assignment when it comes out Thursday. And then there's also, if you want reading chapters 9 and 15, that's about all we have on tap for today. I know it sounds like a lot, but really it's basically, watch a bunch of videos, read the chapters, make sure your group has a time selected for me to meet, all right, with them. Feel free, for those of you who missed the top of the hour, shoot me an email with a platform or a link that you want to meet on at the appropriate time, right? And I'll put an announcement up about that as well. Other than that, that's all I have today. Let me double check to see if there's any questions that have come in while I've been talking. I think I've answered most of them. I know some of you had some questions that you sent in via email. I handled most of them individually. But if there were none that I can think of that were general comments. I guess some people were, one question, guys, I got a lot of questions about question 5 on the conceptual exam, where I asked you to identify a SMART goal. And a lot of people labeled they broke it down and they labeled SMART, and they talked about specific things and measurable things and actionable, but they didn't have a single statement for what the goal was. And so it was really hard to tell what the SMART goal was if the first thing you do is break it down into the letters. And I love the breaking down, right? But what are you supporting, right? So just be cognizant going forward, right, that a SMART goal typically is about one sentence, maybe a little bit more if it needs to be, but about one sentence that meets all the criteria of the SMART kind of qualifying, right? So think about that. Make sure that statement is mentioned first, right? And then we can go from there. That's the one, probably the most common. That question is probably the question where people were most likely to lose points on the conceptual exam. Other than that, most of the other questions were kind of individualistic, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time answering them this week on the office hours. But if you have any more questions about the conceptual assignment, let me know. I think I'm pretty much caught up on email, but I'll double check tonight and see if there's anything else that has come in. Other than that, keep looking for that. Keep an eye out for the analytical assignment. Make sure to be watching through the videos on content marketing and writing for the web. And I think that's about it for this week. So if there are any other questions, let me double check. I think I'll sign off. So we're a little early today. Okay. Yep. Looks like that's about it. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Have a good spring break, and I will talk to you in almost 3 weeks. Okay? Take care. Bye.